I'm going to finally get Raleigh on board here. I'm going to admit him to the room. I have bought a new computer. I have set up Ethernet. And look at there, we're at Raleigh's shop and he's not even there. Where are you at, Raleigh? I'm going to turn the phone off as well. Thank God.
Well, the blind squirrel finds the acorn too once in a while, you know. So
well, I got to tell you, Raleigh, I have done everything I can possibly do to make this work, including buying a new computer, Ethernet cord, the whole nine. And even tonight, we're not even in the bomb shelter. We're in my shop.
Well, I'll have you know that I split up extra kindling today so I could get this thing fired up on time.
Okay, Raleigh, first of all, stand up. We gotta show the apron.
Ooh, look at this, huh?
You want to know what the difference is between yours and mine?
Well, mine's black, of course.
Mine's been used.
Sure. Well, I've got some pretty tricky little things on here. See, I got a nice magnet here, so I can slap my square on there, or my rule, or my little caliper. And I've got back here, you can't really see it, but I've got a holster for my block plane so that I can have my block plane right there, and nice pocket for my tape measure, because I don't wear a tape measure on the outside of the belt. It runs into furniture and makes marks. So, and nothing on this side. This is the side that I hang on to when I'm hauling stuff around. So,
well, yeah, I got to tell you, you whipped up that apron. I'm grateful that you showed me your measuring tape.
Yes. Nothing, you know.
Everybody, we're letting everybody get into the room. I am Raleigh. Thank you so much for giving me another shot at this. I know you're a busy man. I know you wanted to show everybody your shop. And I
don't know if I wanted to, but I suppose.
Oh, stop it. You've been cleaning with a dust vac all day.
Yeah. No, actually my shop, I keep it real clean. I'm fussy about that. So sometimes it's not so organized. What's that?
Turn your camera slow because of the internet. Let everybody see the Roland Johnson shop.
Okay. Now there's my main workbench. That's the big dog right there. And it's soon to get an addition on the back side. Make it a little bit bigger. Let's see what we got in the background. There's my new supercell dust collection system. I'm pretty impressed with that. The Oneida has a high volume, high velocity system that runs on all 4-inch pipe. It's like having the world's biggest shop vacuum without the noise. There's parts of my my bench addition over there. I've got some nice vertical grain fir. I've got legs laminated up in addition to the bench. Radial arm saw in there. Saw stop right up in front. I've got my
wait, go back. The most important machine in the shop you just blew by.
Well, I couldn't see it in there. See? Yes, my baby.
Thank God, because I was thinking you were about to pick up the banjo.
Yeah, well, you know, you got to have a little music in the room. So yeah, there are a couple of mandolins and a banjo out here all the time. You can see there's a mandolin and another mandolin and a banjo. So, you know, you got to keep the music going. And then there's my radial arm saw in the back, and there's the tail end of it. So, okay, we'll go around the other end. This is the hand tool area. And there is my big picture window in my house in the background. You can see it out there. So,
I
It's
got to
nice.
be honest with you. I don't see a lot of work being done in there today. That place is way too clean.
Well, I've got my Shaper Origin there that I'm making some little boxes for Joanne. She wanted a couple little boxes for her sewing room, and then working on the addition to the bench. But quite honestly, I spent a good part of the morning with my chainsaw, and it's that time. It's that time of the year to cut up all the deadfall from the winter and clean everything up. So I spent the whole morning in the with the chainsaw and in the bobcat moving stuff around. And I'll tell you what, it's right now it's blowing probably about 40 to 50 miles an hour out there. I keep seeing leaves and stuff going by the shop. It's crazy weather today. Early afternoon, all of a sudden the temperature dropped and
today.
What's that?
Yeah, well, we heard today that tomorrow we're supposed to get back up into the 30-mile-an-hour winds. We've had 14 days of 30 to 50-mile-an-hour winds here in Virginia.
Yikes.
And, when you live on a mountaintop, that's not a good thing.
No, not a good thing at all. No, I live down in a river valley, so I can hear it more than I can see it most of the time. But today, this afternoon, it's really howling out there. So this is the time of the year that I do a lot of stuff outside, simply because the snow's gone, it's dry out, it's warm out, there's no bugs, there's no underbrush. You can get out there and clean and carry on. So, but so anyway. We got anybody out there that has any questions, or do we?
There's going to be there are Raleigh. There are always questions, and what we're going to do is Sandra is going to read off some questions. She's actually grabbing my glasses because you're a little fuzzy, and it's not because of this. Okay,
it's too early in the evening for me to be fuzzy. Give us a couple more hours.
Well, I can tell you, it's. I'm just grateful that it's up and running and we're live.
That's kind of nice.
He's going to read some questions off to you. What I want to do, real quick, just kind of everybody that's joined us, thank you very much for joining us. Raleigh is just a wealth of information. He's been with Fine Woodworking, being editor over 20 years, and you've just done an incredible job for Fine Woodworking for a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Raleigh has also started this year dealing or using the new Festool router called Shaper Origin, I believe it is.
Yeah, Shaper Origin. Yep.
Okay.
So it's amazing technology. I like to tell people that it's the most innovative power tool that's come down the pike in my woodworking career. I always thought plunge router was just the bomb, because all of a sudden you could do all kinds of stuff with a plunge router. Well, this is a plunge router that you don't need templates for, so it's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's been cool to watch you kind of tout that throughout the year and show folks how to use it. But everybody, Roland Johnson is in the house. So
Hi.
Sandra, if you would please give us our first question.
Patrick from Dragonfly wants to know what your favorite hand plane is.
Did you hear that, Raleigh?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
My favorite hand plane is a low angle block plane. That's kind of the open end adjustable wrench of the hand plane family. And then right after that would probably be my number 5 or number 6 plane. The 5 is a jack plane. They're so useful. 6 is something that people refer to as the 4 plane, F-O-R-E plane, because it's the first plane that you'll use on a rough sawn board or to flatten out a big surface. you know, it's tough to say that there is one particular one that's my favorite, but you know, the block plane, I guess, probably gets as much use as any plane that I have. Mainly, that's why I've got a pocket for it, so that I've got my my block plane right here. I found out years ago that it fits beautifully in a hammer loop on a regular carpenter's apron, and so it's nice to have it right handy, close by, because you're always trimming, fitting, doing stuff like that. And it's low angle, so it cuts end grain really well, and it's handy. It fits in your hand just perfectly. So.
And so, Patrick, to answer your question, the block plane that fits in his pocket that essentially your wife made.
Yes.
Sandra, next question.
Fred wants to know what's your go-to for rust protection on your tools.
Go-to for rust protection on my tools. I use camellia oil on all my table saw, bandsaw, everything. I don't have a problem with rust in my shop because I keep my shop warm. That's one of the biggest problems people have with rust is they'll have cold tools and warm, moist air. And in the spring, you know, you open up the doors of the garage or whatever, and you've got cold tools in there. It condenses immediately and you get rust problems. I keep my shop warm. If my shop is cool and there's hot, humid air coming into the area like we have in the spring, I'll turn the temperature up in the shop, warm up the tools, and that way you don't get condensation on it. That's the number one problem that people have with rust is condensation. Cold tools, warm, damp air. And if you're in a situation where you just can't get away from that, cover your tools. Cover the iron stuff, you know, make drops for over the top of your tools, because there isn't a rust preventative on the market that's going to work well enough constantly, consistently to keep that rust away. Waxes, don't do it. There's really nothing out there.
Yeah, and I tend to wax my tools a good bit. My tools, you know, I probably have to wax mine a good couple of 3 times a year to keep all the moisture off of them. But you know, to play devil's advocate, what if you live in Florida?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Florida, keeping your tools warm helps, because you know, if you keep your tools warm and the air is warm, you're not going to get as much condensation. So with that high humidity, covers are really what you need. And camellia oil is what I use on my tools. It's from the seed of the camellia plant, vegetable oil, and the stuff works great. It's not a huge rust preventative, but it'll never stain your wood, never cause you any problems with finishing. And it's really slick. I use this on my hand planes. I actually have little oilers here that I wipe the bottom of my hand planes with. They've got a removable lid. You can see there's a little wick there that's 4 pieces. Bottom is full of cotton wadding with camellia oil in it. You rub it on the bottom of your plane, makes it work like it's got ball bearings on it. And I just spray a little camellia oil on my table saw, wipe it around, and it works great. Keeps it slick.
Where do I get that, Raleigh?
Camellia oil, you can get it from Woodcraft, or you can get it from Rockler. Pretty much everybody carries it these days. You can get it from Amazon. If you buy it from Amazon, type in camellia oil woodworking, or you'll get cosmetics and you'll get salad dressing and all kinds of stuff, because it is a vegetable oil.
Well, and
decent stuff. What's that?
What is Amazon?
Amazon? Oh, it's this jungle down in Brazil. Just in case you didn't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I've just gotten a new computer after 10 years, so
yeah,
I was just
good.
checking.
Very good. Yeah. Download Google Earth and you can go visit. Okay. What else?
All right, Sandra, what's our next question?
Also wants to know, what is your go-to saw blade on your table saw?
Oh, my go-to saw blade on my table saw. I've got several forest blades. I have a ridge carbide that I really like. That's a fairly new one. I have a saw stop, so I use a regular width blade. Saw stop doesn't recommend using a thin curved blade. And I found the ridge carbide cuts really, really smooth, really clean blade. And I'm not a big fan of a combination blade. Right now I've got a 24 tooth rip blade on my saw because I was ripping some material on it. If you're going to rip, put a rip blade on. If you're going to cross cut, put a cross cut blade on. Combination blades are compromised both directions. And if you really want the efficiency in your saw, switch blades. That's why they make cross cut blades and rip blades. Rip blade has big gullets so that it can effectively evacuate the material, get it cleaned out. Just like when we're running a bandsaw, we want big gullets for ripping wood. And if you're going to cross cut, you can have real small gullets and multiple teeth, because when you're cross cutting, you're not going with the fibers, you're cutting across the fibers. And the result is a lot smaller sawdust module, I guess you'd call it, because you're cutting across the grain. And you're going to get a lot cleaner cut if you're cross cutting with a good cross cut blade, 60 tooth, 80 tooth, whatever, and switch blades. I use my bandsaw for a lot of heavy ripping, and my table saw for smaller cutting. I use a sled on my table saw for doing really fussy cross cutting. So that's that. Yeah.
Well, I have to agree with you. Ridge carbide is my kind of go-to blade on my chop saw and my hand saws. I don't own a table saw yet, but one day I'm going to own a table. But as you can see, I do own one or two bandsaws.
Yeah, a couple, yeah. With a bandsaw,
a really good joiner.
Yeah, yes, that's it. Well, I always kind of chuckle about people who say that they can take material right off their table saw and laminate it together. And yes, you can do that if you put enough pressure on it, and you're going to see the lamination lines. Unless you've got a straight line rip, a big industrial straight line rip, you are not going to get a good enough cut off of a blade to do a really good lamination. You can do a lamination, but a joiner is really important. The joiner is just really important.
You better not stop either. If you stop one time, I can guarantee you there's going to be a line in there that is not straight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, what's the next question?
Lou said that the woodworking show excellent presentation on the origin was what prompted me to buy one, a few days ago. What tools or tasks has it replaced most in your shop?
What tools or tasks? Well, it does stuff that is really difficult to do with other tools. Inlay work, really impressive, because you can import a pattern, a design that you create, and you can make both the positive and negative parts of the inlay, and they're just spot on. Joinery, box joints are a piece of cake with it. There's just an awful lot of stuff that it can do that really other tools can't. And it's kind of the ultimate plunge router, because you don't need templates to do accurate cutting. You can do a lot of hardware inlay with it. It's just, it offers a whole new world, put it that way. It's kind of like the most accurate plunge router that you could imagine. And so that's kind of what a plunge router can do. The the Origin can do quicker.
Gotcha. All right, what's our next question?
Michelle with Dragonfly wants to know, how did you get into woodworking and at what age?
Well, my very first project that I did in woodworking, I was 14 years old, and I built an 8-foot Class C racing boat, little plywood boat, at the behest of one of my neighbors. He thought it'd be a really good idea for me to do it. And I had really crappy tools, and the first 2 times I put it in the water, it sank. So that was kind of an inauspicious start to woodworking. But when I really got into it is after I got out of college. I was renting a house and had a garage, and I'm an old hot rodder, so I had toys in the garage to mess with. But I started buying furniture for the house, and I'd worked in a lumber yard when I was in high school, and I had run the paint department for a couple of the years that I worked there. So I was real familiar with finishing, and I was familiar with paint strippers and different things like that. So I was buying crappy old stuff off garage sales, stripping the paint off of it, finishing it. My neighbors saw what I was doing, and pretty soon they're asking me if I can do stuff for them. And next thing you know, that was how I was making my living, was restoration work. And that segued into building stuff. And I've been doing it I started my first professional shop in 1976. So God, I'm old. I'm older than dirt.
Well, I'm a little disappointed that your first rattle wasn't a block plane.
Yeah. They don't rattle.
Now, I figured you fixed it.
Yeah.
All right, Sandra, what's the next question?
The Dan West would like to
Hi,
know.
Dan.
Do you have magnetic tool holders? Do you see any negative impact to the tools, and do the tools become magnetic themselves?
For the magnetic tool holders? No, not really a problem. I have found that the magnet on this one is strong enough that it magnetized my little square, that's okay. I don't have a problem with it. No, they work fine. They hold nice. I use a lot of rare earth magnets around here. If you see in the background, all of my chisels are held in place with knife magnets. It makes it really easy just to be able to grab them and pull them off there and put them back, and easy to see. And I really haven't found any negative aspects of using a magnet.
I've never once had wood magnetize on me, so it really doesn't matter to me.
No, even ironwood doesn't magnetize. I was a little disappointed with that, but
absolutely.
Yeah.
I am all about magnets. They are free energy. And my God, why wouldn't you use them to keep all of your tools and everything right on the saw so that they're easy to access? And of course, you know me, I'm all about the pencils, putting the magnet on the pencil and sticking them to everything in the shop.
See, I keep my pencils.
But I will have to admit,
you notice how this is angled, so I can even use the little short pencils because I'm a cheap guy.
Well, I will have to admit that the first thing that I do in the morning now, I start to go mark something, and I immediately reach for that pencil, and I know
Sure.
I do not have my Tim the Toolman Taylor outfit on.
Sure. Well, something
right, Sandra,
that's a real important part of my shop is this little gem right here. An Angel 5 pencil sharpener. A Carl Angel 5 pencil sharpener. Whoa, it's the bomb.
There you go. All right, Sandra, what's our next question?
Fred wants to know what finishes you are using.
What finishes I'm using? I use basically 3 finishes in my shop. They're all solvent-based finishes. I use shellac. I use that a lot for many different things. I use acrylic lacquer, true acrylic. I don't use post or pre-catalyzed lacquer. And I use alkyd varnish, regular oil-based varnish. Waterlocks is the varnish I use. I really enjoy using the product. It's a tung oil-based varnish. And those are the 3 that I use. They're all varnishes that are all finishes that are easy to repair and replace. And people ask me all the time, what's the best finish for furniture? And I always tell them the finish that you can repair or replace, because the odds are you're probably going to have to. And if you've used the finish on something that you've spent a lot of time building, you put a finish on that you can't repair and is really hard to replace, and somebody damages it, they're going to bring it back to you and say, hey, can you fix this for me? And if you've used lacquer, shellac, or a real oil-based varnish, it's easy to do, very easy to do. So those are my favorite finishes.
You know, I will tell you, Raleigh, Fred, who asked the question, he owns McLean's Refinishing down in Athens, Georgia.
Okay.
The guy is incredible at what he does. And I would put him against anybody in the world when it comes to restoring antiques.
Sure.
So him to ask about finishes, that just blows me away.
Sure.
So,
well, what he's going to find on his antique furniture is that an awful lot of it is good old time varnish, or if it's earlier, shellac, and they're easy to repair and replace. Very easy to repair.
Yeah. I can guarantee you, he is. There's nobody more world renowned than Fred. Love him to death.
Cool.
Sandra, what's our next question?
Jerry wants to know, do you use, and I don't know how to pronounce this, helical?
Helical heads.
Yeah, helical heads. Yeah, absolutely. I've got a helical head in my planer. I've got a Powermatic 15HH. I got it when the helical heads first hit the market. And I've got a general joiner that I retrofitted a bird shellac helical head in it. It had a segmented cutter, but it wasn't really it didn't do the shear cut that the shellac head does. And they're phenomenal because you don't get tear out, you don't get blowout. If you damage a tooth, it's easy just to rotate it and you're off and running. Yeah, they really, and the shavings are easy to pick up because they're tiny little shavings. They're really the bomb.
I got a question for you on that, Raleigh. This summer when you come down here to adjust my planer and joiner, I'm going to really appreciate that. And we're going to do
a lake. You got a lake close by?
No, but I got a hell of a view. Sorry, I guess there was a 4-letter word. It did not like that. Is there a specific torque that you need to put on those cutters when you rotate them?
Yeah, there is. And if I remember correctly, it's 35 inch-pounds. Okay. I'd have to check that, but that's fairly important because if you really crank them down, if you get carried away, you can crack them. They're carbide, and carbide cracks. So.
I've cracked many, and that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah. Yeah, you want a nice little inch-pound or inch-foot torque wrench for those.
Now, question that I have is if you don't get it exact, can you get a little bit of a wave or a little bit of a flutter in that cut? Well,
you're still going to have quote-unquote knife marks because, the knives are coming around, they're making a cut, the next one coming behind it's going to make cut. And it makes little furrows the whole length because, of course, they're curved so they don't dig in. None of them are really a problem. The furrows measure well less than 1/1000th of an inch. And one pass with a hand plane or a couple swipes with a card scraper, and they're gone. So what you get for trade-off as far as lack of tear out, one of the things that used to just drive me nuts is cherry. You're edge joining cherry, and they have these nice little solid pin knots that are almost invisible, but along the edge, all of a sudden you feel this little tug, and you know that one of those just separated. Now you got a little 1/8 divot that you have to go through and plane out and hope you don't run into another one. With the shellac head or the helical head, that very, very rarely happens. So you save material. I don't even pay much attention to direction of grain anymore. I just join the stuff and plane the stuff. Some woods it does make a difference. A lot of woods it just planes just fine. The one thing
because I was asking that question for a friend.
Yeah, sure. One thing that is really unique about them is they do require more
Sandra,
power.
what's our next question? Yeah, well, I think 5 horses is probably more than enough.
It might be, yeah. Yeah, I think it'll suffice. That's on your joiner, huh?
Well, no, again, just asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Sure. What's our next question?
Patrick wants to ask you a question.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
How do the magnets hold up on your bandsaw fence when resawing?
You're talking about the mag fence, I assume there, Patrick. You know, the mag switches have, I want to say about a 300 to 500 pound hold. And they are just absolutely one of the best things on the market, the mag switches are. But I will also tell you that even on the mag fence, there are 2 small rubber rails running down the fence on the bottom. And if you keep those clean, the combination of the magnets holding to the steel and the rubber keeping it from moving sideways, it's almost impossible to move it without actually hitting it or bumping it. So if you keep those little rubber rails clean, it's really, and if you're pushing that hard, and Raleigh, you can correct me on this, but if you're pushing that hard, you're probably not resawing.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah. Brute force, yes.
We've all been there.
Yes.
All right, Sandra.
Patrick wants to know, where do you get your shellac from, and do you use flakes or pre-made?
I always make my own. I've got a little digital weight gauge that you can buy from Amazon for next to nothing, $15 for a little digital scale. I buy most of my shellac from Homestead Finishing Products. Jeff Jewett is the proprietor of that. And I also buy some from Lee Valley. They have good quality shellac. Shellac has jumped in price a lot in the last few years, and that's one of the reasons it's really important to make your own shellac so that you know what you're getting. Some of the pre-made shellacs, I think they're a little questionable these days about the quality of the shellac because of the price increase. But it's nice if you've never worked with shellac that you've brewed yourself. And you can brew quite easily. If you want a 1/2 pound cut, you can make it. If you want a 3 pound cut, you can make it. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what a 3 pound cut means, it basically means that you've dissolved 3 pounds of shellac flakes in 1 gallon of alcohol, denatured alcohol. Of course, we're not going to brew up a whole gallon. So there's some charts you can find online that will give you your ratios, so that with that little digital scale and liquid measuring, you can make your own shellac to the exact pound cut you want. And fresh shellac is so nice to work with. It dries really quickly. It leaves a beautiful finish. And it's nice thing about shellac, if your whole project goes sideways, everything goes wrong. You know, the dog runs in and leaves hair all over and sand all over your piece, and you're about ready to go nuts. Take some denatured alcohol, wipe it all off, start over again. Piece of cake. And also a good brush is really important too. If you're going to brush it on, you want a good microfiber brush. Golden, what do they call it? I can't think of the name now. That's one of the benefits of reaching seniority, is you can start forgetting everything you ever learned.
Wait a minute. You're over
golden.
65?
Yeah. Golden Taklon, Taklon. That's the brush you want for shellac. Yeah, I'm actually over 45. But I look pretty good for 93, don't I?
Last I heard, Joanne was only 45. You robbed the cradle.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. Yeah.
All right. What's our next question?
Fred wants to know, what are your preferred glues?
Oh, Lord, I know hide glue is coming in.
Oh, yeah. Hide glue. Yeah. Hide glue is one of them. For my regular glue, I use Tight Bond Original, the red label, aliphatic resin, PVA glue. And the reason I use it is because you can dissolve it with vinegar. And that means you can get rid of glue stain by just saturating a rag with good old white vinegar, slap it on that glue stain. It'll take 15, 20 minutes to dissolve it, and it'll turn white, and you can wipe it off the project. You don't have to scrape and sand the glue stain off. And anytime you're doing any kind of laminating, that's really important. And it dries harder than the other carpenter glue, so it's easier to abrade, to sand. It doesn't turn thermoplastic, and you don't get as much glue creep. But I really like working with hide glue. This is what I'm using today to glue up some little boxes. It's called Colle Poussin. I just like saying the name Colle Poussin. You have to purse your lips a little bit when you say Colle Poussin. Colle Poussin is fish glue. And what the benefit of fish glue is it dries clear. And it's almost invisible to finishes, so you don't get glue stain with it. Nice stuff. And Lee Valley sells that. Veritas sells Colle Poussin. And you can put a little bit on your roll when you eat it because it's protein. Here's a good one. Here's a little trivia.
We're past the 7:30 hour.
Yeah, Alex. Here's a little trivia thing. The difference between Jello and hide glue. Okay, the difference is Jello is made from pigskin. Hide glue is made from typically cattle hide. That's the only difference. Same material. So there's always room for Jello.
Yeah, well, I like my bacon.
Yes, everything's better with butter and bacon, man.
All right, Sandra, what's our next question? Well, it looks like we've kind of hit a little bit of a snag. I have a question for you.
Okay, where's that Hevy guy? I figured he'd throw something out there. My God.
You know, it's pretty late.
Oh, that's right. Hi, Jim. Okay, what's your question?
You know, if the new Festool router that you're working with there,
it's Shaper. Yes.
Shaper. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Is it a let's put it this way. Can it replace a CNC?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The biggest thing about this is, well, it can't replace it. Let's put it that way. It would be very advantageous to have one in a furniture shop because of all the things it can do for you. It's not a true 3-axis CNC. It has a live X and Y axis, but it has a set Z axis. Z is your depth. So you set the depth you want, and then the X and Y axis moves to keep it on the pattern or on the piece that you're doing, whatever you're imported. The biggest drawback to some people would be if you're doing multiple, say you're doing 600 coasters. You're going to have to stand there and run the machine for every one of those coasters. So if you're doing 600 coasters, you might want a machine where you just load the material in, you walk away from it, you come back 2 days later, and it's giving you 6 little tchotchkes that you can, do whatever with. But as far as creative license to be able to do what you really need to do in a good furniture shop, this is far superior to a regular CNC, mainly because CNCs are limited to what they can do by the size of the platen, the work surface.
Right.
If you have a typical benchtop CNC, if you have a pretty decent benchtop CNC, you might have a 24 by 36 area or a 20 by 30, something like that. That's what you can work in. If you want pieces bigger, you can move them through it and, start and stop the process. Kind of difficult to do. This thing, you lay down digital tape, and the digital tape is what guides the machine. And this digital tape is little dominoes like this. They're 400 and some discrete dominoes that are printed in a pattern, in a system that you don't get repeat pairings of dominoes. You can lay these things down. You basically photograph them with the machine, and that is its guidance system. It knows exactly where it is with those dominoes. So if I wanted to do an inlay that was 50 feet long, I could do an inlay that's 50 feet long. I just keep laying down tape, scanning it. You can add to your scan as you go along, and it's limitless. You have a limitless area that you can work in. Now, you can't do contours with it. So if you want to carve grape leaves, then you're going to have to use a regular CNC. But truth be told, we don't do a whole lot of that in the typical furniture shop. There's some done, but that basically you want to do by hand. But this thing is just, you can do any size area you want. And that's what really got my notice. Plus, it's really intuitive. I'm a real Neanderthal when it comes to digital. I've tried learning SketchUp. I'm an old T-square and triangle guy, and I didn't want to learn a new language. Well, with this thing, you don't have to. It's really intuitive to operate. So
it's kind of the average man's CNC that pretty much anybody can own, and whether you have the smallest shop or the largest shop, it will work for you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what's just cool about it. Yeah.
We got a couple of questions, and you're going to have to be nice because, yes, the master is in the room.
I figured.
Jim did say, I heard that.
Jim was on board. He already knows we're in trouble.
Well, he must have good service out on the links then, because he's probably watching us on his phone while he's trying for par.
His golf cart. Sandra, what's the next question?
Back to the glue. Fred wants to know, does it smell like fish?
I missed that, Sandra. What was that again?
The glue. Fred wants to know, does it smell like fish?
No, not at all. No, there's no odor to it at all.
Okay.
It's funny, Patrick Edwards, who is the kind of the guru of hide glue, he owns Old Yellow or Old Brown Glue. Patrick says, the whole thing about the glue smelling bad is a fallacy, which it really is. It's an urban legend kind of thing. He says glue should smell good when it's brewing, like food. Okay. Yeah, like soup, I guess.
As disappointing as that is, Sandra
wants to know from Raleigh, what species of wood in color and price would replace mahogany and cherry?
As far as replacing cherry, alder really does a nice job of replacing cherry. The grain patterns are very similar. It's a little softer than cherry, so you wouldn't want to use it in a situation where it's going to get a lot of abrasion or impact, but it's very easy to dye alder and make it look virtually like cherry. And red alder is really nice to work with. It's got a beautiful consistency for carving or planing. It holds the line very nicely, so you can do beautiful joinery with it. Mahogany, boy, I've worked a fair amount with true mahogany, Honduras mahogany, and there's really nothing that replaces mahogany. There's a lot of African mahoganies that are okay. They're a little harder to work. There's road grain with it, and they just don't have the look or the workability that real Honduras mahogany is. I was really hoping that we would be able to start getting some Cuban mahogany in this country, but I guess our relations with Cuba didn't pan out well enough for those in power to allow us to get Cuban mahogany. But boy, I sure would like to get a hold of some.
I appreciate their cigars much more than their wood, but that's just me.
Well, you can get their cigars. You can't get their mahogany.
It's kind of up in there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Technically, it's sort of illegal.
Sort of, yeah. There's a lot of things that are illegal, Alex.
Well, this is true, and they're becoming more and more legal every day.
Yes, they are.
Okay, Raleigh, it is the 7:50 hour, so it is time to, there it is. There
Now
it is.
now I can have a little of my Lefroy. This is a Scotch that Gary Rogowski, a good friend of mine, clued me into Lefroy, and it's a very peaty, smoky taste. And Gary said, "Yeah, Lefroy is like going face down in a peat bog." So there you got it.
I've had those kind of nights. Cheers, brother.
Cheers. Ambrosia.
Now, there you go. If somebody could not live without the ultimate bandsaw, and I do mean the ultimate bandsaw, and I only say this because you and I kind of have a little bit of a kindred heart when it comes to that particular tool.
You think so?
You know, I know you wrote the book on it, and as you can see, I might have one too. If you had any choice in the world, what bandsaw would you own?
Oh,
Uh-oh.
A bandsaw that's always had.
There you
No.
go.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, we were breaking up there a little bit. I'm thinking you asked me if I had any choice to buy any bandsaw, which one would I pick? I really like Tanowitz. Tanowitz are beautiful bandsaws. I've got a standing offer for a 36-inch Tanowitz if I want to take it for free. Problem is it's a foot taller than the ceiling in my shop, and it would take up about a third of my shop. But Tanowitz, really beautiful, beautiful bandsaws.
Okay.
On the current market, you're kind of sitting. What's that?
Current market, and the other question that I have before you answer that one, can I be there on Thursday to pick up the Tanowitz?
Yes. The problem with it is he mounted it on a concrete slab and then he built a building around it. So there's no easy way to get it out of there other than taking it completely apart.
It wouldn't be the first building I've torn down.
Yeah, I don't think Fred would like that too much. As far as the ultimate bandsaw on the market today, you're sitting right in front of it. So,
right.
Yeah.
Hey, brother.
That's a 24-inch, right?
It is. It is.
Yeah. I've got the 18 and I covet the 24, but the 18 is awful nice. 5 horsepower, gobs of power, beautiful. You know, it's nice. Yeah. I give it a little hug every morning when I come in the shop.
Darn right I do. Sandra has accused me of cutting toothpicks with it. And, you know, I'm okay with that. There is not a more incredible table size, wheel. It's never once even hiccuped. And it is the ultimate in bandsaws. Now, I've got the 14 right next to it. That 14-inch has been my workhorse for years. And yes, I still use it for scroll cutting. I also use the Jet if I want to kind of resaw. And I also still have the old 12-inch Sears, which was my very first kind of figure out and how to play with bandsaws. And I still like my Sears. People look at it, and when I resaw with it, it just blows them away. So I've got a little Rikon 10 that I really like for really fussy stuff, and it's Joanne's favorite. She likes it because it's not intimidating. You know, it's a nice little saw. You know,
so
size does matter.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
All right, we've got just a few minutes. We might go just a little bit longer tonight. Not much.
Sure,
just
make up for it.
We were a few minutes late getting in. Jim says that he gives you a thumbs up on the Scotch.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with. I'm not a Scotch fan.
Yeah, yeah. They're acquired tastes. I like bourbon. I mean, Blanton's bourbon. There are a few things better in the world than Blanton's bourbon. There's some really good. Basil Hayden is nice. Knob Creek is good, but when it comes down to Scotch, Macallan's 12, Macallan's 18. That's some pretty nice stuff, you know.
Now, I have never once at the end of the show day seen you turn down Miss Kitty for a drink.
No. By the end of a day at that show, it really doesn't matter if it's pourable, it's fine.
It could be Fireball. You're drinking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thunderbird, you know.
Just give me something to make my throat burn, please.
Yes, yeah. In college, we used to drink something called Old Overholt, and of course, we called it Old Overcoat, and it got its name.
I believe it was recycled into Hunch Punch once my kids went to school.
Yeah, probably. We called it Moscow Mule Juice, you know.
Okay, we've got another question, Raleigh.
Okay.
It's for you.
It's sadly it's for me.
Of course. Yeah, it's all about you. Yeah.
I know. Sorry, buddy.
Jerry, that makes a little
Yep.
He wants to know if he gets a big 24-inch, will you come and help him set it up in North Carolina?
Jerry, you know what? If you get a 24-inch Powermatic, Raleigh and I will both be there to set it up.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Where were we? I believe it was Baltimore, where Chuck Bender. He
No, it was St. Louis.
St. Louis. Okay. I get my cities mixed up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do.
Chuck Bender said that a guy had said that he had set his saw up and had done the Snodgrass method and just hadn't got it to work right. And he said, you know what? I'll be over there with Snodgrass on Thursday to help you set it up. Well, he didn't believe it. Chuck and I went over and we got him set up. He brought us a couple of bottles of I think it was Rare Eagle, and Rare Eagle's not a bad bourbon either. As a matter of fact, it's a darn good bourbon. It was just very kind of him. He actually brewed bourbon in his kitchen.
Sure.
Well, you knew the man was single when he was able to brew bourbon in his kitchen. Well, Raleigh, I think we're pretty close to being at the end. I can't thank you enough for coming on and answering questions. I hope you'll join us again.
Oh, I will.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you. Yeah, it was my pleasure to be here. I always enjoy answering questions. You know, I like making up crap. You know, nobody knows.
Well, you know, nobody knows that better than I do. But you know, okay, maybe Jim.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. So.
There you go. All right, now, quick question.
Okay.
Who's older, you or Jim?
Jim.
What?
I'm just a kid, you know, I'm just a kid.
Okay.
I look really good
Jim
for 92.
Bob Stead.
How old is Bob Sedek? Sorry, folks, that's an inside joke, and it would take us the rest of the evening to explain it. But That's the problem and the benefit of working together for a long time. We know all the inside jokes.
Jim has said that he loves you.
Oh, thank you. I love Jim too. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, we're gonna go out on a little joke. We used to give my dad a bad time about he'd keep repeating jokes all the time. And we told him we were gonna start numbering his jokes so he wouldn't have to go through them. So this is a joke that's about that. And this guy gets thrown into prison. And the first night he's in prison, somebody hollers out 38, and they all start laughing, you know, and a minute or two later, a guy says 52, and they all start laughing. And the next day the guy goes, what was that all about? And they said, well, we've heard these jokes so many times that there's no sense elaborating on the joke. So we've numbered them, and we just holler the number and people know what the joke is. So the next night, you know, they're all in their cells, and the guy goes 75. And nobody laughs. And the next day he goes, I don't know what I did wrong. That's really a pretty funny joke. And the guy looks at him and goes, it's all in the presentation.
Well, it's a shame Jim's not here because he's got a great bar joke about being at the wrong end of the bar.
Yeah.
I know you've heard it.
I know the joke. I think that is 75. Yeah.
Okay, so say hello to everybody. The puppy.
The puppy, yeah.
All right. Well, again, Raleigh, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed asking him questions. And again, I hope that you'll join us again. Everybody, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you again for joining us after Friday night was unfortunately such a catastrophe. Raleigh, cheers to you, brother.
Cheers, and cheers to everybody out there. Enjoy your woodworking. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do while we're practicing social distancing and staying at home. Actually, woodworkers, really, it's pretty easy for us to get into that because we tend to be solitary anyway. And now we can just say, nope, I'm busy in my shop. Nobody can come near me.
There you go. I love, as my wife calls it, I love being quarantined.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you can lock me in my shop for weeks. Just slide the food under the door and I'm happy.
Amen, brother.
Yes, yes.
All right. Everybody, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you this Friday. This Friday, I believe, is with Jimmy DiResta. Roland, thank you again for joining us. Y'all have a good evening.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
See you. Bye.